There's no man on earth more terrifying than Poatan. For every championship victory and new herd, a bloodied and bruised soul felled by Poatan's hands of stone. These are the victims of Alex Pereira. Sean Strickland is perhaps one of the only men signed to the UFC renowned more for his antics outside of the cage as opposed to in.
I mean, have I sucked on a few toes here and there? Yeah, but I mean, it's more of just like, why not try some shit?
Fighting his demons through the art of war and outward projections on the microphone, behind the mask was a man mentally frail, fractured by an early life rife with trauma. But through his mental struggles came victory and a prominent position in the middleweight rankings. On the cusp of a title shot most deserved, Sean would be paired strategically against the fast-tracked Brazilian. A play by the matchmakers to intertwine narratives with the Nigerian king himself was an orchestrated plan to have Sean lose. But he was never a man to turn down a fight, even if it was against the warrior those in the know feared to the utmost degree.
How do you fast-track the guy? Well, you put him in there with Shale, that many of you believe is the rightful #1 contender anyway, Sean Strickland.
I've trained with plenty of good kickboxers. I think I can handle it. You know, and after me and him have a war and I, beat Alex, you're going to see I'm a whole different guy.
Oh!
Despite his erratic nature, Strickland would take the loss in his stride, bowing out honorably, a far cry from his loudmouth persona. For Poatan, the victory aged well. As amateurish as he had made Strickland look with that left-hand shot, the American would go on to find the same accolade as the Brazilian, lifting middleweight gold. A win in many ways cemented by Pereira's sage-like knowledge. As the dust had settled, the two had forged an unlikely friendship, crossing linguistic barriers through the training room.
Hi, my friend. How are you?
Pretty good. Yeah, where am I, bro? Where am I? Yeah, let's fight again. Don't knock me out this time. You can still knock me out.
In terms of a fighting legacy, there is little that hasn't already been said about the last stylebender. Though he now lies on the declining end of his fighting career, succumbing to the clutches of time, few will forget his legacy as one of the UFC's greatest ever middleweights. But perhaps more so, his legendary rivalry with Poatan, which was immortalized with just one fateful sentence.
And then there's this ultimate bad guy who was just in some fucking bar in Brazil, and then Izzy had to open his mouth.
He's gonna be at some pub talking some shit about, I beat that guy one time, trying to get a dick sucked from a crack whore or some shit.
Hatred born through their skirmishes across the kickboxing realm, Adesanya, even after moving to mixed martial arts and finding glory, remained evidently haunted by his losses to Alex. Upon those fatal words spoken, a catalyst for the Brazilian, a fire ignited, and the mark for his first steps into the UFC.
And you're like, DC, wait until you see this Pereira in real life. And I'm like, okay, he's good, DC. He might be the best kickboxer that we've ever had. Oh, and then he does that, and I look over and I go, oh my God, you were telling the truth.
The narrative seeds of their feud cultivated by Dana White and Hunter Campbell. Pereira's run to a title shot was orchestrated and undeserved, but the UFC is a company that favors theatrics and stories over fighting principle, and at UFC 281, they would finally clash inside of the octagon instead of the squared circle.
Look at me. Don't worry, I'm here. I ain't going nowhere. Solid. Thank you, gentlemen.
Poatan's piercing gaze painted a clear picture. Adesanya not calm and reserved as he had been many a times before. And for Pereira, a victory here was a formality, the event nothing more than business. And yet for Israel, his legacy was defined by its outcome.
All right, here we go, round one for the undisputed UFC middleweight championship.
Pereira there's so much danger when he gets close to you. Look at this.
So it is Adesanya who ends up on top. Now axe kick to the body.
A lot of the action's taking place in a very short space. The big octagon seems to be favoring Adesanya right now.
20 down, 5 to go. Woo!
Não, com certeza eu achei que eu tava perdendo.
It seems like we're looking at 3-1 pretty comfortably for the champion.
Vou falar uma coisa com você.
Tem 5 minutos pra você ser campeão mundial, Patão.
Adesanya 5 minutes away from remaining the UFC standard at 185 pounds. Fifth and final round.
Here's that left hook. Big shots from Pereira.
Big shots.
Adesanya's on one more.
Oh my God.
Two more. They'll do it.
He did it.
Todd has done it.
He did it again.
Alex Pereira, the undisputed middleweight champion.
So yeah, I put it on the line, and this is what happens. Again, I dare to be great, and I am.
In attempting to settle his demons on the grand stage, Adesanya had instead been swallowed by them in the fight's final moments and lost his belt in the process. Now forever a victim of Alex's patented left-hand shot, it was a loss written into middleweight tapestries, but not the end of the tale. They say that history is written by the victors, and between the two, it would be Adesanya that would get the last laugh come their rematch. This time Israel was the hunter, not the hunted, and his demeanor reflected it. The heavy burden of a champion now resting on Poatan's shoulders. Izzy had nothing to lose, and a man who has nothing to lose in this game is the most dangerous of them all.
Oh! Counter right from Adesanya. Pereira down and out. Order restored. Adesanya
He said
has
he would
finally
get him.
done it.
He got him back.
Israel Adesanya.
He got him back.
The only man to best Poatan inside those 8-cage walls, their feud's conclusion had no bitterness left, only respect for one another earned through battle. Perhaps on another day, in another timeline, they would be better known as allies rather than rivals.
Bro, that samurai spirit, bro, it's not a facade.
Yuri only has bad intentions. There's heat on everything.
Each side has big elbow. Yuri Prochazka.
Unlike Alex's previous adversaries, the stoic mind of one Yuri Prochazka was not to be easily cracked. A man dedicated wholly to the Bushido code first, with a fighting life playing second fiddle, he was a gladiator fit for forgotten legends, tales of old, seemingly brought to the future for the sole directive of becoming a UFC champion. His skill set, as flawed as it was entertaining, would carry him to that very summit.
It's there. He's got it. The Czech Republic has got one. Yuri Prochazka.
A victory defined by the legendary war preceding it. The loser that night would define Poatan's next steps. His mentor, coach, and in many ways a father figure, Glover Teixeira, lay battered and bruised, his belt taken. Though at the time at UFC 275, Alex Pereira was a relative unknown in the MMA world, he had Yuri Prochazka marked forevermore, waiting for his moment of vengeance. And by the time they would do battle 20 events later, this time for a vacant light heavyweight throne, Teixeira sat retired in the corner, not as a fellow fighter, but a coach, imparting his knowledge onto the man with the hands of stone. It was a battle that couldn't be won through mental warfare alone. Alex's piercing tribal gaze would perhaps fail lesser men, but the Czech samurai lay unfazed. The only path to victory was instead through unadulterated attrition.
Look at this stare down.
Intensity.
Whoa.
Two stoic, intense athletes.
For my money, this is the best stare down in the history of the sport. There's no two men like these two guys staring at each other, looking into each other's souls.
Yuri Prochazka in the red or Alex Pereira in the yellow. Early takedown for Prochazka.
This is not where Pereira wants to be. Anything they teach you. Oh, look at that.
Oh, nice job by Yuri.
It's a big right hand. Oh! The counter from Pereira. That is going to do it. Alex Pereira, welcome to the history books.
Prochazka's wild fighting style had finished almost every man before Alex, but the man with the hands of stone stood tall and slew the samurai in an honorable duel. Claiming the title of a two-way champion in the process, Pereira now had his eyes set on a new target, one with far less honor and respect for the art of war and those within it. In between Prochazka's ascendancy and eventual loss, a myriad of issues and intertwined fates would leave the light heavyweight throne vacant, and two men to fight for it. Pereira not the man on this occasion, rather once more his mentor and coach. And in his way lay a man unassuming by all accounts, a Contender Series alumnus who had quietly forged his way to the top with little fanfare. But the weapons of one Jamal Hill were not to be disrespected in the slightest, as those who faced him would soon come to realize, Teixeira included.
Under 3 minutes to go, round 3. Jamal Hill trying to wrap up a world title. Teixeira's on the ropes. Record-breaking performance for Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill.
The Brazilian bloodied and bruised, retiring to a near-empty arena, a truly sorry sight. MMA is a young man's sport, sure, and Glover most certainly passed his prime, but it was a victory granted nonetheless for Jamal. And just like Jiri before him, its double-edged sword was that Poatan now had him in the crosshairs.
Do you think there's something to him kind of being a pupil of Glover? Because I've seen that video, the picture where, you know, you and Glover in the octagon in Brazil, and he's kind of standing in the background. You can tell he looks real upset.
You know, I have been talking. You know, I'm going to talk. I'm going to make sure this fight. I'm going to make sure they know this is a fight that you don't want to miss.
Upon their eventual clash in the main event of UFC 300, the belt had of course since changed hands, leaving Pereira the division's ruler. But for both men, the objective remained the same: sell the biggest card of the last 10 years and come out on top. For the former, Jamal would go to the extreme in terms of theatrics, but also with his inner belief. Few could doubt his confidence, but it was perhaps that very thing that would result in his end.
Oh, you gonna knock him out?
Yeah, bro. I have to put a severe ass whooping on him just for the simple fact of the disrespect of how y'all are coming at me. I'm making a very assertive point. Mark my words when I say this. I do not plan on taking him down. I do not plan on wrestling him. I plan on going in there. I will knock him out.
Just to getting acquainted with the visual that I plan on seeing on Saturday night.
Eu vou fazer ele lembrar desse momento aqui, quando eu estiver entrando no octógono, quando estiver tocando a minha música, ele vai lembrar desse momento.
Well, UFC 400 might be in 2032, so let us enjoy this main event at UFC 300.
We'll be here, baby.
All right, here we go. That's Jamal Hill challenger in the black multicolored trunks for the incumbent, the champ Alex Pereira.
Stop. Continue.
Please, get out of here.
Oh! He just dropped Jamal Hill!
Redemption for his fallen brother, and catapulted into superstardom. A clear victory for Poatan, a fair one, and yet Jamal's inability to reconcile with that result would drive his stock down. In many ways, it's somewhat understandable. To reach the sports summit as he did requires innate belief to the point of utter delusion. And whether on the winning or losing side in this game, it must never waver.
I took no damage. Most of the fall was me falling down. And I remember everything. I remember looking up, seeing his legs. I remember him coming in. He's able to land some shots and kind of throw my equilibrium off on the other side, but I was coherent the whole time.
For all the talk though, the dust that settled long ago, Pereira the king, Hill a contender once more. MMA is not a game for aging men or women, and despite his clear dominance, the clutches of time had begun to sink into Poatan. By usual standards, his age of 37 was the mark of a typical drop-off in ability, as speed and reaction time begins to gradually decay. Though not apparent just yet, Alex knew its inevitability and quickly sought another victim to further his legacy. UFC 303 was to be the card graced by the only man with more star power and pull, the Notorious himself. But as it seems all too common with the Irishman these days, a last-minute change of plans would throw the event into jeopardy.
But we do know what the replacement is. And as far as replacements go, it's a pretty good one.
The new main event is Alex Pereira, and he is facing former UFC light heavyweight champion Jiri Prochazka.
Short notice camp is a difficult task enough, but to face the wild man Jiri Prochazka once more is a different beast. He may have bested him only 8 events ago, but the Czech's unpredictability meant any outcome was possible. In essentially rolling off the couch to compete on the UFC's grand stage, Pereira would skip the countless hours on the mat training, every minute of tape study, instead relying on his ability to see the day through.
This time, we're not going to get no Airbnb, we're not going to get no big house, we're not going to bring a whole entourage. It's going to be me, you, Glover, the corners, and the boys. We're going to sit on the fighter's hotel. We're going to go over there like we're going to fight on the undercard. We're going to win this fight, go back home. You have enough time to look at the blueprint of the bank, check the cameras, and plan a bank robbery. But sometimes you just give your friends a gun, tell them to hop on the car, and let's just go rob a bank together.
To find victory would of course require that mindset, but also something far more sinister. Pereira's tribal dressing and every bout's build had been unearthed as not something purely for show, nor just to strike fear in the heart of his opponent. Instead, at least in the eyes of Prochazka, it represented something more supernatural.
Everybody knows he is working with some shamanics, with some shamans.
Bro, his spirit. You know what Jiri said about the whole juju thing? Like that's real. That's real.
He's doing these rituals before the fight. He's everybody can feel that, what's around him and what's going on. So, and I think Alex can't fight without that.
Taking on the paints and patterns of the indigenous Pataxo tribe that his ancestry is traced through, Alex was in every outing channeling that energy towards a dominant victory. And just as it happened at UFC 295, this time at the T-Mobile Arena, Poatan would add another feather to his cap.
One message for him, I know he talk a lot about spirituality, just so he knows, you know what I mean, the same God that blesses us is the one that protects us, and I pray a lot for him and for me to be well after this fight.
For many in this game, it is a harsh dose of reality that instills the drive and work ethic to become an MMA fighter. And Khalil Roundtree's tale is no different.
I didn't have the courage to really face certain challenges because I didn't have anyone that stood there to let me know that everything would be okay. I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I was drinking alcohol nonstop. I was taking random prescription pills, just trying to numb all of my pain. I remember stepping on a scale and it said 305 pounds. And that was when I started to think about, okay, what can I do to hold on to my life? And that's what drove me to start things that involved fitness and health.
MMA would be the guiding hand, transforming a man once over 300 pounds into a fighting machine that eventually found its way under the UFC's esteemed banner. Those same struggles in Roundtree's early life that catalyzed his pivot into the sport were also the motivator for becoming a greater warrior too. Adopting the Muay Thai base that had carried so many champions to the top, it was a transformation necessary to turn Khalil from a good fighter into a great one.
The transformation that guy's made as a fighter from when he went to Thailand, he's a beast, man. When I was watching him throw those kicks, I was like, who's this guy?
He was brutal.
How did you turn into this guy?
Woo! And
Come on.
That's it.
5 straight wins would see him enter the light heavyweight division's upper echelons, and through fate and circumstance, found himself challenging Alex Pereira for the throne. This position wasn't one many expected Roundtree to be in. As the number 8 ranked contender, and a lacking resume in comparison to his colleagues, it was about considered by most a simple layup for Khalil to be a statistic and footnote on Pereira's record. But the air of Salt Lake City, Utah has something within it to bring about those historic moments.
The main reason that I've always wanted this fight, really, is for the fans. You got 2 of the best strikers in the world going at it, and that's what I want to give the fans. It's MMA, anything can happen. But what I'm trying to make sure that everybody knows is that when I step in there, you get to expect the best version of me. And the best version of me is not someone who switches my plan and then out of nowhere in my career decides to become a wrestler.
For every chapter of his inspirational journey, UFC 307 served as a brutal reminder that the fight game does not discriminate. Often it's the bad guy, the heel character, who wins in front of the hero and his home crowd. Alex may not have fit that bill entirely, but the brutality of his finish most certainly reflected it.
Will indeed do it, and
Bravo.
Alex Pereira reigns supreme.
Jamal Hill was seen yawning after the fight. Looks like he's implying that the fight was boring. I'm just curious if you can respond to that.
Yeah, maybe he just woke up from UFC 300.
Khalil may lay as the final victim on this list, another recipient of Poatan's hard hands, but he bowed out with honor as one of the few men to crack Alex's shield of immortality, earning the respect from his opponent and the doubters in the process. And for Alex, in finding his victory, another title defense claimed, now sets his sights on yet another victim.